Hi everybody, this is Craig Tiener for The Mindful Eye and the Daily Critique. Today's image was submitted by Roger, who is an advanced photographer. Roger took this image on Martha's Vineyard, said he found out about the location from a friend, said that he bracketed multiple frames here and used Hydra and HDR processing, which is high dynamic range, to extend the dynamic range. He says he likes the way the colors in the dynamic range sort of match how he remembered the day. Roger took this with a Nikon D700, the 24-70 lens, and an effective focal length of 70 millimeters, and at f13. One of the main exposures was f13 at 1/80th of a second. He bracketed around that. Roger says that he likes this in a black and white conversion, and would I prefer black and white or color, and also just like to hear about any other perfect world improvements. So let's get right into it here. One of the things that I really enjoy about the image is the quality of light. Get a really great sense moving through this part of the image of a feeling of side light, and also some places that are in soft light, some places that are in more direct light, and then soft light again. And that really helps to create the feeling of being able to move through the image to my mind's eye. And I really like the way the light hitting the warm part of this landscape shot also helps to add depth. It really accentuates the warm part and makes the cool part, in this case, recede even more. The other thing that I enjoy about the image is just a really beautiful quality of lines, some really beautiful repeating diagonals in this part of the scene, and I love the way that pushes up against this really beautiful area of what looks like a rocky beach and a little bit of a lagoon. I like the way the color transitions here too, from the warm out into the green, and then you can follow the green around on the water. Nice textured sky here too. There's the potential for even more depth in the sky, and I'm really enjoying that. One of the things that we can do right away is just go into channels before we do any other work and just look at these different channels in black and white, and just from a basic conversion standpoint, just sort of see what we think. And I think with some work, maybe combining some channels, you could end up with a pretty nice black and white version of this image. But for me, in this particular case, I really much prefer the color version. To me, when I look at this image, it's really sort of this part of it in here that seems to be one of the main subjects, and the color really helps to bring that out. When this goes to black and white, you end up with quite a lot of sort of midtones and high midtones, and so you don't have the tonal separation. We could, of course, push that with levels and curves adjustments and things like that, but to me, there's not nearly as much separation. And that in fact ends up making the image pretty complex. I think it's a simpler image in color because colors are already separating in a very simple way. It's almost as if shapes are colors and colors are shapes already in this image. And so let's just talk about the color version. One of the things that I think about when I look at this image is that it's really sort of this movement in the way this comes together that's the most exciting part of the image for me. And to me, this is just sort of context that makes this even more dramatic. Not only do you have these beautiful lines and you have the beautiful color and you have the beautiful beach here, but then when you see all this water and sort of get the sense of the ocean and then the sky up here, it just makes this, to my mind's eye, even more dramatic. What does happen for me on the horizontal line is that this area right here sort of rhymes one of the main ideas, and then this area right behind this shape to the right, where it starts to really get bright again, this really pulls my eye, and it starts to make me think about what's over here out of the frame. And it also, in a lot of ways, starts to compete with this idea over here. It's just sort of the concept that two ideas that are the same or have about the same visual weight can really start to divide the viewer's attention. And having said all that, I think one of the things that I would do to this image if I was printing it myself is I would come over and crop to right here and make this more of a square, something like this. So we can go back and forth now and sort of see what we think about that. I think this really sort of brings your eye down into this part of the image now. And from here, I know that Roger has already said this is sort of the way that he saw the image. I'm not so much in the documentary school of photography. I would look at this and I would sort of say, what is the main idea? And then I would try and accentuate that and bring it forward. I'd like a little more contrast. You know, when I look at the histogram right now, There's great detail everywhere. You can see that we've got detail in the blacks and detail in the whites, but the truth is if we shot this on film, particularly slide film, we wouldn't have all this detail. We would have much more in the way of a black point, and we also would have some areas that were white points if we shot this on a slide. So one of the first things I would do to the image is I would go to the adjustment panel and choose levels, and I would just go ahead and set a true white point in the image and give it a little bit more of a black point. I'm going to do that in normal blending mode to pump the color a little bit more. Go back to layers, click on the mask, hit the X key to make black the background color, Apple delete or Control delete to fill the mask with black. Grab my brush. I'm painting on a mask to change either color or contrast or value. So I'm going to have 0 hardness on the brush, and I'm going to start at a really low opacity. I've already got 10% set. That sounds pretty good. And I'm going to get a pretty big brush here, and I'm going to come in and bias this in terms of bringing the contrast up in the area that I feel like is the main part of the image. So I would just come in, and I'm doing this pretty fast and a little rough, but it'd take a little bit more time, but you get the idea here that I'm biasing the whole thing towards this area that I want to sort of have the most energy. And then once I did that biasing, I would then take a much bigger brush and come in and play around with adding more contrast to the whole scene. And then I may come back in to the sky here and bias some of these areas to try and get even more of a feeling of texture and depth. So I'm just going to come in and sort of hit the areas where the clouds are already white. And again, I'm doing this in a rough way. I'd pick smaller brushes, but for the sake of the video, you get the idea. And then I could come in on the same layer and just continue to sort of drive some local contrast in here by hitting areas that are already bright, where there's a flow of energy that sort of ties into driving the eye down into this area, which is sort of the main place that I want to drive the eye. We could come in and do that and create a little bit of movement in here, and this is the work that we've done so far. And then from here, I think the other thing that you could do is you could darken this down a little bit from the top. The other thing that I think about in this image is that if I was there shooting, I would have been looking for a way where I could get the composition as far as the dark part of it to come all the way out here to the corner. I think that would be a really nice touch. I think it would help to balance these ideas up here from top to bottom and bring this around to the corner. And I think that would tighten the image up a little bit. You could definitely do that with the information that we have here. You could take this and scale it out and then blend it back in. Just a thought, and because again I'm not that much into sort of the editorial idea of the image and more of sort of reality just kind of being a starting point, I might consider doing that for this image. Be interesting to know if that would have been possible with the framing. And a lot more that we could do to this one, but let's just leave it there for today. Would love to hear your feedback about this critique. Would love to hear what Roger thinks about it. Big thank you to him for submitting this really beautiful landscape image to the Mindful Eyes Daily Critique.